Hello, welcome again. We are going to start further pages. We have already covered the page 90 up to 89. Now we are going to start uh, we are on the page of 90. So let's get started. Putting, putting facial expressions to use in comics requires you to tackle your four subjects. Okay, so the facial expressions, if you want to make the facial expression, you have to tackle the four subject. Here is the four subject, the different kinds of facial expressions and where they come from. Okay, how how those expressions are formed by the muscles of the face. So it's very important when you want to start to draw the facial expressions. If you have a story and you want to draw the facial expression, and you have idea, you have idea when you need to laugh, when you need to be happy, when you need to be sad, when you need to be depressed, whatever. Okay, so if you have an idea all these things, then you need to practice. So that's why I do daily practice. And let's see these four things that will help us to understand the facial expressions in the deeply. So okay, how those expressions are formed by the muscles of the face, the various strategies for rendering those expressions graphically, and how facial expressions work in comics style sequences. The human face can take on any number of shapes in the course of a day. Some indicate physical states such as pain or exhaustion. Some are meant to communicate with the other directly. Okay. But the lion's share of the face's power to move us lies in its ability to convey basic human emotions. The results of that process can be varied and complex, but at its source are a few simple building blocks. In 1872, Drawing wrote that some expressions might be universal, a few shared by modern expressions experts like Paul Ekman. Okay, definitely. I saw somewhere in the comic book, you can see the different kind of expression that you haven't, that you haven't, that you didn't do any day, right? But you can see in comic books like this expression. To be honest, I haven't done this ever in my life. So these are the basic emotions with all human beings exhibit regardless of culture, language or age. A small handful of pure expressions from which others are derived. Six of them to be exact. So let me take you to the again those four things that you have to be, that is in your that you have to be keep in your mind, the different kinds of facial expressions and where they come from, how those expressions are formed by the muscles of the face, the various strategies for rendering those expressions graphically, and how facial expressions work in comics style sequences. Okay. Now some of you might be thinking that can't be it, there are far more expressions than those. Okay, let's see. So here is some expressions: anger, disgust, okay, fear, joy, sadness, surprise. And there are but just as three primary colors can be modified or mixed to achieve every color of the rainbow. So to can these emotional primaries be modified and mixed to create many of the expressions we see every day. Okay, so he's saying only using these four expressions you can make a different kind of expressions. Let's see how we can make. So this is sternness. Hmm. indignation, anger. It seems like a very anger person. And rage, it is in the extreme level, I think. Disdain, aversion, disgust, revolution. You can see how it is changing continuously, and it is going, the facial expressions, it is going in the extreme level. Concern, anxiety, fear, terror. Wow, how beautifully expressed, so it is beautiful. Satisfactions, amusement, joy, laughter. Dejections, melancholy, sadness, grief. Alertness, wonder, surprise, shock. Wow, beautiful. For example, by varying the intensity of our primaries, you can see other familiar emotions emerge. So, ingrained are these intermediate emotions that each one carries a specific meaning, definitely, and each gets its own name. And by mixing any two or four our emotional primaries, we can produce a third expressions, which in many cases is also distinct and recognizable enough to earn its own name: disgust and joy. Ew. Okay, it's a very interesting to add some expressions and to make some new expression. But let me tell you, I think not I'm going to tell you the authors want to what author wants to say, but I want to share with you what I think about it. To to add some expression and to make some new expression, it is not possible when you are in your life. It is just we are making, maybe the author making in your comic book, not like if you are making the character in your comic book and he is very happy, he is very joyful, that doesn't mean you are also that time happy. Maybe if you are even if you are you know sad or upset, you can make a happy character. So it is totally different when you are doing something and what you are that time exactly. So both are totally different. So take it as a just only to learn about what the author wants to say, not you know uh, whatever you are seeing not doesn't mean that the characters also think about it. Disgust and sadness, pain, empathy. Disgust and surprise, you ate it. Anger, disgust, outrage, sorry. Anger, fear, caged animal. Anger, joy, clarity. Anger, sadness, betrayal. Anger, surprise, what the. Disgust, fear, horror. Fear, surprise, spooked. Joy, sadness, paint hop. Joy, surprise, amazement. Sadness, surprise, disappointment. Creepy, yes, but useful. See the chapter notes for more on why. Wow. So in this book, as you can see, how there are lots of expressions the author has provided us. So it is very beautiful, and every expression has its own name. So beautiful. Okay, here is more. Thrown up through throw in mixtures of the other intensities: mild disgust, mild sadness, puzzlement, mild joy, mild sadness, pity, or even combination of three or more: strong sadness, moderate anger, moderate joy will become remembering a deceased loved one. And the number of distinct emotional expressions you have at your fingertips can grow to well over 1,000. And there are other factors which can add even more variety. For example, notice how all of the faces is stemming from these emotional primaries have been largely symmetrical. Emotions has no direction, it comes from within. Emotion has no direction, it comes from within, definitely. But there is world outside those faces that can also play a part in facial expressions. Physical states are inborn and ancient, a factor in facial expressions as basic emotions. Pain, drowsiness, nausea, but because they involve our cortic interactions with the physical world, the shape they take can be less balanced and predictable. Pleasure, relaxation, exertion, tickling, intoxication, light overload, head overload, sound overload, gravity, bodily sensations, and the external source of stimulations all come into play. And naturally, these expressions can be combined with the varying intensities and combinations of the emotional primaries. This leads an even greater number and variety of expressions, yet it's still just the tip of the iceberg. And naturally, these expressions can be combined with the varying intensity and combination of the emotional primaries. These are the visual signals we send to each other directly, often in combination with body language signals like head and hand positions and gaze directions. Because when you throw in all many ways, we use our faces as a form of direct specialized signal. No system of analysis could even begin to catalog all the different types of facial expressions your characters could wear. They are deeply rooted in our inborn emotional, expressions, and still affected by physical states. But they add an ever-changing glossary of culturally specific signs and symbols understood by both sender and receiver. They are, for all intents and purpose, a language, though a language only partially under our conscious control. Some of these signs have become as formalized as traffic signal. The wink, the authorized tongue, the oh mom look. But most are more subtle and idiosyncratic, tailored to specific people in specific situations and subject to the individual style of the sender. By adding head positions and gauge direction to the mix and allowing for asymmetry, they achieve far more variety than the basic emotional expressions. Suspicious, coy, self-righteous. But they are also harder to pin down or make universally recognizable, so context is important when separating pleading safe from merely sad or regretful from forgetful, self-satisfied, pleading regretful. And also I want to share you something before moving further. Like, we don't need to when you are making your comic books, maybe, like, I'm talking about my comic book. I want to make my own comic books, but I don't want to show the readers a very angered person or very depressed person, because I don't want to convey all these things. But maybe sometimes I want to convey, maybe I'll have to convey something like this. That time I will need these type of steps. Otherwise, there is no need to make every expressions in your comic book. It is not need. Okay. Each expression has to match a few key features to be recognizable. Okay. So he's saying every expressions have to be match to be recognizable. Had turned away plus narrowed eyes and eye contact plus lowered pro sequel suspicion. Okay, yeah, definitely it is very not easy when you are making expression. It is not just your mouth or you know uh, it is not just your mouth but your whole face. Like when you will be angry, your eyebrow will look like a different, not different, but will be in different shape, and your eye will be in different shape, or your mouth will be in different shape, not just not in a one expression. It is different, it will variate. But once those key features are in place, the sender can spin that expressions in any number of directions. For variations on suspicion: mistreat my daughter and I'll have to kill. I'll have you killed. Oh, come on, you don't really expect me to believe that? We can't you making personal calls again, your friend. Yeah, you are a liar, but you are my kind of liar. A bit of an emotions like disgust can added, for example, to give suspicion or disdainful air. But if that emotion becomes the faces dominate visual statement, the expressions can be hijacked. In real life, we achieve these kinds of precise effects without much conscious knowledge of how we do it. Yet we must understand on some level how our faces achieve these looks, because we can also consciously imitate any of these expressions and even add an element of stylization or exaggerations to produce a mock version of each one. Real mock. Hmm, real mock. Okay, got it. In some cases, an attempt to stop showing emotions can actually be one of the key factors that make a given facial expressions recognizable. Embarrassment, averted, fearful, gauge, mouth expressionless. Look at the smiles in snapshots, and each will seem as unique as a snowflake. Hmm. But underneath them all are these are same basic principles played out again and again. Definitely these all these same basic principles played out again and again. As part of human society, we all want to see past each other's faces to the person within. We need to understand that the human face is a, a machine or a sports of all its beauty and subtlety. We don't want to disconstruct them to the point where the human face seems like a machine, but as artists hoping to reproduce those inner personalities in the minds of our readers. And the only way to understand that machine is to go beneath the surface and see its parts in actions. Okay, now the actual thing that is going to be start, how you can create the facial expressions. You're going to start from here. I think if you want to make facial expression, you have to be understand about the muscles of the face. Facial muscles. First thing that you have to keep in mind, orbicularis, oculi, which squeezes the eye as an squinting, so let's call it the squinter. So this is the part of the squinter that he is talking. And the second thing is the frontalis, known as the brow lifter. This one is the brow lifter. Third, corrugator, corrugator, brow, which pushes down the brow, known as the frowning muscles, but that's just confusing. Okay, fourth thing, canyway, corrugator just sounds cooler. This one, cooler. Levator, palpebrae, which also sounds sorry, levator, palpebrae, which also sounds cool, but leader lifter is easier to remember because that's all it does. Geo Geogrammatic measure known as the smiling muscles. Okay, this one is 6 and the 7 is here. Triangularis, which pulls down the mouth's corners, would call it the frowning muscle. This one, frowning muscle. Levator, Lebis superior, three branches of muscles known collectively as the sneering muscles. This one, sneering muscle. Depressor labial interior pulls the bottom lip down as in speaking, so let's call in the speaking muscles. So this one, this speaking muscles. The mentalis or the pouting muscles, which pushes up the chin and lower lip, creating a bulge in the chin. Orbicularis or is the lip lightener, which curls and tightens the lips. There are many muscles that move the face, but these are the ones that contribute primarily to expression. Okay. The mentals or pouting muscles, which pushes up the chin and lower lip, creating a bulge in the chin. Okay. Most muscles in the body connect bone to bone across a joint. They contract, we move. But many faces muscles stretch from a bone outward to the surface of the skin. When you smile, for example, the surface and that muscles is pulled toward the anchored. So this one. Take another look at our emotional primaries with these muscles in mind. Corrugator plus lead lifter adds up to angry glare, while the activity sneezing, speaking, and lip stretcher muscles produce the square mouth of the cornered predator. So this one. The smiling muscles pulls the corner of the mouth up and out, compressing cheeks, which together with the squinter produce the arched eyes of joy. Corrugator plus squinting muscles shuts the eyes tight in the reaction to the disgust in object of attention, while the mouth and nose recoil via the potting and sneering muscles. Corrugator brown lifters struggle over squinted eyes, while the lip stretcher, triangularis, and putting muscles produce the sideways V-shapes of the crying mouth. Corrugator and brown lifter compress and raise the forehead over the lifted lids of the fire-filled eyes, while the lips are tightly stretched apart and opened. The brown lifter pulls the upper face strength up in surprise over wide open lid lifted eyes, while the mouth falls upon all the other muscles remain inactive. By learning what's going on under the skin, you can better show happening on the surface, and show your readers what's going on inside your character minds. Interesting. When drawing expressions, you can choose from a few different graphic strategies. Realism, simplification. Realism, reproducing the real life appearance of experiences expressions with realistic tones and details. Simplification, searching for a few key lines or shapes which clearly convey an expression. Exaggerations, amplifying the key features that make an expression recognizable. Symbolism, images that depict emotions symbolically rather than with real world resemblance. And you can indirectly affect your audience reads an expressions by its context within a story or how it's paired with words. Execute, the prisoners now because love you, that's why. If choosing a more realistic approach, you might need to use the live models or photographic reference. Friends and family can be especially helpful when going for a real life detail. Okay, it's interesting. Of course, your friends may not always be great actors, so get ready to use your knowledge of expressions to bridge the gap when necessary. Okay, yeah, it's a very sometimes, not every time, but if you will ask your friend to be model, so that time there is not a necessary, they are not character. That's why you have to bridge the gap with when necessary. Even if you are working in a simple form exaggerated style, real life experience can improve your results. A lot of artists refer to a mirror when drawing expressions. Okay, I didn't know. Just make sure you don't start drawing all your characters to look like you. Definitely. Simplification is most effective when it captures the key features of an expression. The arched eyes and bunched cheeks of joy, for example, or the pinched brow and nose squared upper lip and mm, bulging chin of disgust, or the raised brow, popped eyes, and slack jaw of surprise, and how it differs from the tortured brow and stretched a mouth of fear. Exaggeration sieges on these same key features and simply ramps up their geometric extreme. Cheeks bulging like grapper fruit, a face pinched nearly out of existence, a head stretched thin, eyes literally bulging out of their socket. Serious, anxious, crazy, spiteful, embarrassed, proud, drunk, in love, dead. Symbolic expressions don't rely on understanding of real facial expressions to work. A simple doodle or two is usually all it takes. Some begin their lives as simple pictures of actual physical reactions, such as sweat. They drift into the more abstract territory of pure symbol. Others are strictly method metaphorical and requires you and your audience to both know the code before the message can get through. Symbolic expressions are closer to the written word in the sense that their meaning is fixed regardless of how they are rendered. Just as the word means the same thing regardless of handwriting or font choice. Okay, that's for the today. So see you in the next video. Till then, bye. Thank you.